Well, good evening and welcome back to KTN Prime. It's clear that the clock is ticking down to the heated November 27th by-election. And as usual, Kenyan airwaves are full of the usual political venom. And tonight we're joined by Commissioner Dr. Danvas Makori from the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, the body established to be Kenya's fire brigade against matters to do with hate speech and incitement, even though their deterrence power has been criticized by members of the public time and time again. So we want to find out what the Commission is doing in terms of combating hate speech, which is their sole role. Well, Dr. Makori, thank you so much for your time. Karibu sana.
Thank you for having me. It's been a minute, but I said I have to come.
I understand you're suffering from jet lag kidogo.
We've come from very far.
Yes.
We had taken a visit to a porter farm.
Oh, interesting.
And also, it's called Kajaramogi.
Kajaramogi.
Yes. Yeah, and we have prepared gravies as not just as the NCIC, but other independent offices, Commission and independent offices. So we'll be there the whole day. I had a visit with the family, with Mama, condoled with her, comforted her, and then rushed back here.
Okay.
Yes.
Thanks for your time. And we're having this conversation at a time where I understand NCIC leadership is undergoing transition as the commissioner's term is coming to an end. When's your final day?
As a matter of fact, this is my last TV interview
as a commissioner.
So you're a pretty lucky one.
You see, it's a scoop.
Tomorrow is our officially last day as a commission.
Yeah.
We started on the, officially became a commissioner on the 20th of 2019. So usually a day before, 6 years later, because 6 years fixed term, one term, then you can go for something else. But it's tomorrow is our last day as a commission.
Yeah.
And it's been a privilege to serve and help this country of ours.
I'm sure it's been a thrill, highs and lows.
Oh, absolutely.
And we'll get to reflect all that. Yeah. But I understand the commissioners will be giving a comprehensive handover report to the president. Yeah. What exactly will it entail?
It's approximately 135 pages of compressed work that we did for the past 6 years. And sometimes you don't know how much you've done. And as you rightly said in the beginning script, we often criticized. But actually, we've done a whole lot. You know, I was going through the report because I'm the chair of the technical committee that actually oversees the report.
Yeah.
And just seeing the draft and the amount of work we've done from ending conflict in Mandera, in Marsabit, to a peaceful election, to so many policy briefs and drafts we've done, to growing the commission. When we came, it was only 65, 50, actually almost 60 staff. Right now, we're 148 people. Our budget has been doubled. We've opened regional offices. We've done so much peace work, grassroots work. We've done actually significant work. So the report to the president basically shows our work, and make sure once he receives the report officially, then it becomes public and you'll definitely get a copy.
Okay, and we'll definitely be waiting for that just to take a look at the boxes you've ticked in your 6 years tenure as commissioners. But let's talk about that negative perception out there, because at times, if I can put it this way, they look at the glass half empty, not half full. Yeah. So when it's seemingly lackluster crackdown on incidents of hate speech and incitement, and I think that's what's driving that common narrative. So kindly talk to us, explain to Kenyans, with the increased cases of incitement, whether it's online or by elected leaders, what tangible actions has NCIC taken to address the menace?
Thanks. You know what is important? I think Kenyans genuinely need to understand the role and the mandate, especially legal mandate of NCIC, the framework we operate. Because then if they did, they might cut us some slack, just a little bit. Number one, as a commission, we only handle hate speech, not incitement.
Hate speech.
And that's a problem.
Okay.
You see the technical problem. As a matter of fact, incitement to violence, actually incitement, is the penal code, actually was ruled unconstitutional about 2 or 3 years ago, right before the last election, so about 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago. We deal specifically with hate speech. And allow me just to define it in our act, so you can understand, and our audience can understand how narrow the scope is and what our mandate is, and most specifically, why it was done like that. Because once you understand why it was done like that, it was actually intentionally made sure that it is only that narrow, but also there's context to that, okay?
So do you differentiate hate speech, incitement?
So let me define hate speech.
Yeah.
Hate speech in our Act 13, Clause 13 says, a person who uses threatening, abusive, or insulting words or behavior or displays any written material, publishes or distributes written material, presents or directs the public performance of a play, distribute shows or plays, a recording of visual images, or produces or directs a program which is threatening, abusive, or insulting, or involve the use of threatening, abusive, or insulting words or behavior, commits an offense if, now this is important, if, conditional clause, this is what qualifies what hate speech is. If such a person intends to thereby to stir ethnic hatred, or having regard to all circumstances, ethnic hatred is likely to be stirred. So all these things is directed to ethnic hatred. And our Act says there has to be intention, mens rea in law. Yeah, you have to prove intention to stir ethnic hatred. Now, that's a pretty high bar, because I can say pretty much anything, but can you prove what my intention was to? That's a problem. Now, then we're given some leeway, and it says, having regard to all circumstances, ethnic hatred is likely to be stirred. So if you look at everything, if you say something about somebody's ethnic group, you might cause problems. So it's extremely narrow, because hate speech in our law, actually, it is let me just put it in context. Hate speech in the world, Kenya was the first to codify hate speech in law. You have to understand, that's pretty significant. Yeah? Kenya was the first to have a commission like ours to address specific issues. And then we're the first. So there was no benchmarking, so to speak. Nobody had done it anywhere in the world to have a law that specifically addresses hate speech. We're the first in the whole world. Yeah, that's very significant. Yeah. So when the writers of this law wrote it, I'll remind you, it was after the 07-08 violence, right?
True.
Now, who caused that violence? It was our political actors, political leaders. Who wrote our act? Exactly. Now, at that time, of course, there was drama with the ICC. People feared ICC. So why would they create a body that is as powerful as the ICC that will put them in trouble? So they made sure that our act is significantly weakened, the bar extremely high, and very parochial and narrow in definition. I have just read it. You have to prove everything you say has to have intention to stir ethnic hatred. Now, let me ask you something. You are in the news space. We monitor everything, what happens here, even in political rallies. Most of the things that happen, number one, can be incitement. Okay, can be. But incitement is not in our mandate. You understand? That is actually what we actually can handle as a law. But most importantly, what happens in political rallies is not just incitement, it's incendiary, it is very stupid words, it is bad words, bad behaviors, but legally speaking, doesn't really qualify to be defined hate speech.
So if you incite one ethnic community against the other,
yes.
Is that hate speech?
Absolutely, yes. Not incite, you have to prove intention to cause trouble. Okay. Or if you do it, then the ethnic groups fight, then we can say, you see,
your words
X, Y, Z say this, cause this. Okay. Therefore, we can prosecute you. But you see, that's after the fact. That's the problem. It is after you said it, then there's trouble, then we come and arrest you. That's just, now, if we act beyond our act, then you'll accuse us of acting.
You're stretching.
Yes, you see the problem we have.
So is the cost of hate speech higher than political gain? Because NCIC has issued repeated warnings. Yeah. I think we've seen walls of shame most recently, which the public at times views as non-punitive, to say the least.
All right. I understand that. But we are essentially and intrinsically a peace commission. The DNA of our commission was actually to prevent violence, to bring peace, okay? Not to punish. And in the theory of behavior, you need to reinforce positive behavior first of all, yeah? And what we did, let me just come, you brought about the wall of shame, but they forget also we had a hall of fame, yeah? They used to go hand in hand. And as far as it was criticized, yes, it was criticized, but it was a creative tool of being preemptive. Because prevention is better than cure. when you see politicians behave badly, saying words that are borderline, pushing us to that, they're not, but we know they're borderline. So they're very careful. These people are very smart. They use codified words, they use some language, they will speak in parables, that you know exactly what they're saying, but it's not legally speaking. So we figured, you know what, we don't have legal powers to maybe engage them, but we can be creative. And guess what? In 2022, when we started that, it was criticized, but it was a very effective tool post-mortem. If you look at what happened, can you imagine in 2022, we had only one high-profile arrest of a potential hate speech case when the Honorable Mintika Luturi talked about Madadwa in Eldoret. And it was in reference, we know the past of that word. So that is the only incident we had in the entire, and you know, I mean, we used to about 150 rallies in a day in 2022, which we were monitoring. We had, 18,000 candidates, political candidates, for all sorts of so it was out of 18,000 candidates, speaking 150 times a day across a year and a half, we only had one person because there was that preventive aspect of it. And also we said, okay, not only the bad part, but also these guys are doing good. Yeah, so we promoted that. So it actually it became effective because our work is not to arrest, it's not to be punitive, it's to make sure there's peace. So let me ask you something. If by doing that, as you can see, there wasn't many cases, then why can't we do that? Yeah.
So the end justified the means.
Absolutely, because that's our job, is to bring peace, and we had a peaceful election, and it worked. It actually did work. So we can't complain every single day our act is weak, because it is weak, as you can see, and it is very parochial. And there's amendments right now in Parliament to address the specific issues.
How far are they?
Geez, that's another.
Exactly.
I'm glad you asked that. Now, this is 6 years ago, it was still on the floor.
By the previous team?
Yes.
Okay.
6 years later, I think it's in the second reading. And it's been back and forth in the committee stages, back and forth. And politicians know they're the ones who misbehave. So these are the people that actually ought to write the law, amend our act, and expand it. Right now, the biggest threat to peace and security in our country isn't even really hate speech, because that's our mandate. We do a lot of social media monitoring. Do you know the biggest mandate, the biggest threat right now is misinformation and disinformation? In our new act, it covers that, because that is the biggest threat. We live it. I monitor this space a lot. And I can tell you, especially in 2022, we saw it, especially after the election, after people stopped voting, the week between the end of a ballot cast and the announcement, the amount of misinformation, disinformation, especially coming from political actors and their proxies, the bloggers, was immense. That's a threat to national security.
Okay.
Yeah. So for us, we want to expand our act to include such things, not just you saying bad things about a specific ethnic group. Now, that's the past. Unfortunately, we didn't have AI those days. Can you imagine? Those days, think about it, there was no Facebook, there was no X, there was a lot of social media, and just the other day. So now we are actually including the social media aspect into our act, because that is actually where the danger is. As a matter of fact, hate speech has migrated from political rallies and incitement to social media. If you look at what is happening online, sheesh, unbelievable. It's incendiary. It is so dangerous. So that's now where we want to expand our activity to cover.
So there's no semblance of progress in terms of knowing when this act will become law. And is this the same act where the proposals are that gives you sort of prosecutorial powers to be able to take these cases?
So there was that. It was in the act.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, in our informed opinion, there's something we call separation of powers. And we didn't want to go there. It was proposed even in the BBI thing they were doing, and I thought about it, and we thought about it. We said, okay, that's good, yeah. But then the problem is it takes power from constitutional powers from the DPP, because in our constitution you need an amendment to our constitution actually to do that, because in our constitution the only person who can prosecute is the DPP. So there's separation of powers, because think about it, and checks and balances are important in democracy. Yeah. So we don't want to go the extreme. Yes, we know the limits of our law, but you don't want to go extreme to give us superpowers, because then there's no checks and balance. Because you cannot investigate. Listen, I'm investigating you.
True.
Then I come and arrest you. Then I can prosecute you. So where's the checks and balance? In our constitution, I can investigate you and arrest you, But somebody else needs to check my work to make sure there's a threshold that I'm just targeting you and not witch hunting you. So that's the checks and balances that we need to have to protect everybody. So we need to go to extreme also, because Kenyans do have constitutional rights too.
Okay.
Yeah, to due process. So we don't want to go the extreme way. Yeah, but that was proposed too. But I think we took it back, after thinking about it, we took back that.
Okay, let's hope there's political goodwill as the new team comes in place to make sure that this act becomes law. So what specific challenge does NCIC consistently face in transitioning from transitioning a public flagged hate speech incident into a successful conviction? What's that major legal challenge?
One, it's the definition, threshold extremely high and parochial. One, that's just beginning. On a technical level, the law in itself. Two, our legal system and the legal framework, and really what goes on in our courts. The average court case in Kenya takes 5 years. Now, we have a memory of a goldfish in this country. Whatever you say today, tomorrow has been forgotten. So do you think Kenyans care about what you said 5 years ago? No, you're probably a hero now. Yeah? So when we start prosecuting right now, since we began as commissioners, this is about 6 years ago, do you know how many cases we've handled? 300 cases of hate speech inside. Yeah?
Prosecuted
fully? Yeah, not fully, they're still in court.
Okay.
Most of them, and majority of them are still in the court process.
How many have been concluded?
Oh, Jesus, I think about 30-something out of 300. Yeah. So you can see that's 10%. Yeah, that's 10%. And majority end up either being acquitted or the slap in the hand, because that's what actually in the act, the punitive measure is just a slap in the hand. So there's no deterrence even within the act in itself. So we've increased the deterrence aspect, whereby you're talking about a fine of 10 million or 5 years in jail, because right now you can pretty much get away with it. So the cost of saying what you want to get elected is, you look like I might as well just say what I want, because 5 years,
it's a slap on the wrist.
Slap on the face, and I can get away with it.
Yeah.
So even in the amendment, we're actually looking at that specific issue. Yeah.
Okay, now beyond forwarding files to the DPP,
Yep.
what proactive measures does NCIC take to immediately disrupt, the political momentum of some of these people? Because you've mentioned some of these cases take so long,
Yep.
and there might have been a villain, and now they've turned to a hero by
Yep.
the time this case is getting concluded. Yep. So what other proactive measures do you apply? Is it court injunctions? Talk to us about it.
Actually, I'm glad you've brought that up, because one of the things we do, so, when we're accused, we're not doing much, because people want to see convictions, right? I want to see people not doing hate speech. I mean, that's to be better than cure. So people want to see, you need to arrest and prosecute and make sure this guy goes to prison. I want to see nobody talking about hate speech or inciting people to hate speech. In 2022, one of the things that proved very effective, and this is a tool that we use, is engaging political leaders directly by themselves behind the scenes. So I'd call you and say, yesterday, this is what you said. I'll play you a clip. And you're a young person. And there's no need to go that way. Just uza sera zako, as we will say in the streets. Yeah? What's your policy? What's your manifesto? You don't have to really engage people and really push that. Now, if you remember 2022, both formations, both Azimio and Kenya Kwanza, broadly speaking, because those are the main formations politically speaking, for the first time in the history of our country, it was issue-based policy for the most part. It wasn't ethnic mobilization, as now we're going back to an extent. Yeah, it was, this is our manifesto. Bottom up, these people had somebody else, and you Kenyans choose whatever you want. And Kenyans chose the Kenya Kwanza manifesto. Now, what we did, and to answer your question, is now really push politicians to commit to peaceful elections. They had charters. Do you know how many? First of all the 4 presidential candidates signed the political decency charter, and majority of politicians. We worked close with the ORPP and IEBC to really engage politicians on one-on-one and behind the scenes. And some of them, you buy them tea, or go to a place, you hang out, buy them whatever drink they have, and have a conversation. And that really proved to be effective. That's why you saw, and again I say, and it's on record, this was the most peaceful election we've ever had.
But is a politician's word worth much? Do you really take it?
But you see, did they incite? Did they come and say really bad stuff? No, not really. Mm-hmm. So actually, it worked. And what we realize is if you talk to them, in my experience, I mean, I operate in a political space, I've learned that when you talk to a leader, a politician, first of all, they respect that. They want attention too. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they like the attention. If you call them like, hey, you know what, we need to have a discussion. You know, it feels important. A whole commission, the commission called me. No, rather than summoning them and embarrassing them, just have a discussion like, yeah, you know what, we respect you. You don't need to do X, Y, and Z. Next time, go this way, number one. Number two, what we realize also is engaging their proxies. So we teamed up with young people called Shujaz. It's techie people. There's a coalition of techie people. We say in Swahili, fighting fire with fire, diaboto di moto. And instead of just being on defensive, we did a lot of positive messaging. And positive messages by young people reached 15 million Kenyans. Yeah, so that has a suppressing effect on the negative rhetoric that comes. Yeah. Because if you push positive message, the negative rhetoric goes down. Yeah, so both the audience and the proxies who would push that negative aspect were kind of cut off. They were actually now on defensive because everywhere people are saying positive things. We're talking about positive issues. Nobody's talking about somebody's ethnic group. Nobody's calling you names. It was, this is what we stand for. And really positive messages about peace, 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 peace. And it really worked. So both politicians, their proxies, and online, we realized it works. Now, why this is important, guess what? Why do politicians say what they say? Because the audience actually does like it. You understand? Yeah. So when you create, when you raise the standards, tulienda mashinani, not just online. We were on the ground a lot. We did, we actually with you, we did a lot of, we were in those trailers every day. You remember, we were across the whole country. We were actually doing campaigns ourselves. Grassroots campaign from Kisumu all the way to Isiolo. We did that. So we raised the standards so that when a politician comes, people demand you to sell your policies, not just issue insults from the pulpit.
Okay, so from what I've gathered so far, how exactly is NCIC monitoring, regulating, or deterring the use of social media platforms to spread hate speech? Or without the act coming into force, this is beyond your purview?
Well, we still monitor.
Yeah.
We do a lot of monitoring social media. We do, and we just have a tool that in a coalition with some partners, created an in-house tool. It's called Phoenix. So Phoenix is an AI-powered large language model tool that is customized to our local settings. Because some of the tools that you'd buy, they're suits that you buy, they're really commercial. They don't understand Luo, Kalenjin, or Kikuyu. Yeah. So we understand the local language and the local context, especially politics. Actually, most of these bad behaviors and bad language is always it's in Swahili or the mother tongue. Yeah, so it's able to do that, and we have keywords that we flag both in either English, Swahili, or local dialects. We have codes that I know politicians like using. So when you mention something, it's able to pick up very quickly. When a blogger texts or sends a message, we'll to pick up and know. And the tool, and then we have further forensic tools that go into pursuing even pseudo accounts and pseudonyms, because people like hiding behind anonymity when they really spread hate speech or incitement, and able to track them. And we also work with the sister agencies, the DCI, the NIS, really to track these perpetrators of bad actors, because we're all in the security space. But for the most part, we do monitor that, and then we're able to, again, be preventive and still at the same time be able to push certain narratives which are positive.
Okay, well, while we were starting, you mentioned how during the 6-year tenure of this, the current commissioners, including yourself, you're able to increase number of staff.
Yep.
Yeah, but recently we understand that the anti-exclusion body itself found itself on the receiving end, accused of cronyism and nepotism, destroying perhaps the little moral authority to champion cohesion in some people's point of view. And just yesterday, the NCIC CEO, Dr. Daniel Mutegi, appeared before the Senate Committee on National Cohesion, and he was hard-pressed to explain how comes the commission bypassed a transparent recruitment process. Just listen in to the question-answer session at the floor of that committee hearing.
There was no clear advert. What was there is that people had dropped applications for various positions, even before this resolution was made.
Was there any advertisement? If yes, say yes. If no, say no.
There was no advertisement.
In your statement, as you've put it, it is like the commissioners literally forced you to employ irregularly. Is that correct?
Some senses, yes, because there was a need to comply with the resolutions of the commission. There were a lot of, stamping of the foot of the honorable commissioners that the CEO must do that.
Okay, according to many Kenyans, NCIC is the ethical mirror of the country. So when NCIC is calling out certain individuals, and they themselves have 22 individuals within the commission who were not hired competitively in a transparent recruitment process, it sort of paints a picture of the pot calling the kettle black. How comes this happened during your tenure?
So I think let me give just a little bit of context, because and I'm going to say this as carefully as possible. You see, there's a technical process, and there's a political reality that people operate in. So whenever you operate whenever you're a technical person, you're a technocrat, and certain things are done, you always clash with the political reality, especially in our country. And there's always a certain interest, a lot of times involved in this issue. Now, I think all I can say, briefly speaking, is I think there is I can call it a truly misunderstanding about this whole process.
What do you mean?
Yeah, and that's what it's a misunderstanding, it's miscommunication to really address this specific issue. And I think there's a political reality, there was interest, and when you see sometimes when people don't have their way to an extent, that's why they will do such things. But I can tell you, there's a clear misunderstanding about this, and if you look at even today, they still came back today, and today's session was like 10 minutes and the whole thing was done, because we had, again, going back to what I was saying, we had as much as we as away, I think we're in conversations we were not yesterday, as commissioners, and I wish we were there, because then we could have explained it in a much better way. Because the calculation that is given there is you can see there's inexperience and naivety in even explaining it. Because if you get the full explanation, which maybe we don't have time here, you'd realize that it is not as it is being portrayed. And
so what's the true state of affairs? Those 22 individuals, were they hired in a competitive process?
I think as far as I'm concerned, as far as you're concerned, to an extent, yeah, they were, because they were called, they were interviews, they were done, and actually today, because yesterday the Senate asked for the full report of the process, and when they were given the full report, today they didn't have a problem. Yeah, you understand? Because they given the report, they were given a full report of the interviews, the applications, how they were done, the interviews, how they were conducted, the shortlisting. And they realized, actually, well, I guess it wasn't as
But they seem to have a problem with the fact that it wasn't advertised. There's some issues where the boxes weren't ticked.
Now, we are policymakers.
Yeah.
And when you read even the HR policy manual, we only recruit NCIC level 4 and above, which is principal officer, now assistant director, deputy director, and the CEO. When it comes to this, all we do is approve the recruit. We just approve, yeah? So when we give guidelines, it's okay, if we had budget as clearly as it was done yesterday. We had authority to hire. We had letters were submitted to the committee again. And applications had already been done, you understand? And time frames were very tight, because the hiring needed to be done before the close of the financial year, as per the authority that you were given. So it was deemed fit, and with a lot of consultation, the due process is to already, the applications which are already there, people, when we advertise for jobs already submitted with us, is to go ahead, and we gave guidelines, say, okay, you know what, you can even advertise online if you want to. So whether the typical people did or not, that is not really a part. Now, when the names came to us, we just approved. Now, that's what I'm saying, how it's being portrayed there is not true, the true picture of the entire matter.
So it's not patronage?
No. I mean,
hiring was based on merit?
Of course, yes. I mean, this is public service, and everybody was qualified. And it was merit-based. And how you will know later, actually, the best way, like there's a verse that says, wisdom is vindicated by her children. In other words, it's what somebody produces later that it vindicates whether what was done right or wrong. So for the most part, these people, applications came and it was very competitive. Today they saw the reports, they saw the interview reports, they saw who was selected, who answered what questions, who was number one, number two, and people just selected based on that.
So political interference?
No, well, we live in a political reality, of course, yeah, and that we cannot escape from that. This is the reality of that. It is not, again, it's not as it's being portrayed. That is why today they were still saying that's why today the picture is very radically different than that it was yesterday. Because today when we engage them now on phone and give them a better explanation, I think they're able to see, you know what, it is not as dire or as bad as it was being portrayed to be.
And I think the best way to get back the trust of the masses would be perhaps an internal audit. Is that in the pipeline?
That is fine. That is always done.
Okay.
You know, I mean, every public institution, there's always audits. First of all, internal audit that's a law. Everything is audited. The AG does audit. So that is always welcome. So we know that. That's why it's hard to do things that way, as we are accused, because everything must be audited. I mean, why put yourself in trouble? Yeah. So, and also we must be careful of grandstanding, because sometimes there's political grandstanding. Yeah. Yeah. And you're my friend, but your colleagues like the hottest headline, and sometimes how they come across. I mean, of course, you gotta sell your business, but sometimes we gotta go back to facts and figures. Sometimes and they're not really as sexy as sometimes as it's portrayed to be. So there's also grandstanding, and that is actually grabs headlines. It's not what is factual and what the process is.
Okay, yeah. I can assure you, as standard, we're quite factual. Facts come first.
I said your friends, not you.
I'm going on the
I didn't say you.
Okay,
I didn't say you.
No
I said
problem.
your friends. I said your colleagues.
Okay. You didn't mention them.
Yes.
I was trying to defend the few I know. But anyway, let's talk about this fact of NCIC being a toothless dog.
Yeah.
As you leave office, will this notion actually come to an end? Because there seems to be, at least from Kenyans' point of view, a gap between high-profile investigations and delivering high-profile convictions at the end of the day. So how can you assure Kenyans that, you know, files are not just warming up in government offices? At the end of the day, prosecution decision will come to fruition?
I'm going to answer your question differently now. There's a document Kenyans don't know called PBA, the Peace Building Architecture. It is a review of peace building space and the peace infrastructure for the next 30 years. It reviewed our past 30 years, our achievements, our weaknesses, and what we can improve, and then we were future looking. And we're part of that discussion. It was funded by UNDP and commissioned by the Kenyan government. How does peace look, the entire peace infrastructure, look in the next 30 years? We're very future, we're trying to look at the future. And so that's why I brought a few issues like AI and digital peace building. Now, within that peace building architecture, there's recommendations. And that's very important. That's why I want to answer you differently. Because we know the challenges NCIC has had in the past. I mean, it's in the public domain, we've been criticized, and oftentimes they're not rightfully so. Yeah, I usually speak the truth as it is. Some of the criticism actually is rightful. Yeah. It is not just the weak legal infrastructure, but also it's the financial aspect, because you cannot operate if you don't have money. You know, so you're handicapped in terms of operations. In the new peace-building architecture, it looks at everything, including not just the body itself, but also the financing aspect of it. Because, can I shock you? Our funding during election was double. A good number of it coming from foreign entities. Yes, donors come and everybody's interested in peaceful election. After that, everybody disappears. But the responsibility of peace and security is Kenyan government. It is not the EU's responsibility. It is our responsibility as Kenyans and our own government. Yeah. So in that peace building architecture, it looks at, now listen to me, a formation of a new peace commission, a new dawn. Because in the current makeup of NCIC, it's not just, we're not going to be effective, because the funding comes from Treasury through Interior to us. Every other constituent office, their funding comes from the consolidated fund. You understand? And it is easy to handicap an institution and hamstring it and put it in a straitjacket just purely by restricting how much money goes to it. been a key institution.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in the new act, he looks at forming a new commission. It's called a new peace commission. The makeup of the commission is different than who we are today. More importantly, the funding is radically different. More importantly, their mandate is extreme. Actually, it's a powerful commission. It's almost like a super commission. If we implement the PBA, then Kenyans will not be complaining about NCIC as it is right now. Because even new commissioners come. Yes, there'll be political goodwill, but who knows the future? Because political good is like wind. It blows this way today, it blows this way today. Today in favor of government, today you're not. Yeah. So it is very unpredictable. So you need predictability. You need a strong foundation for an institution like NCIC. So the strong foundation is found in PBA. If it's implemented, I can guarantee you what you've said and what Kenyans are saying will be a thing of the past.
Well, we're speaking ideally.
Yes.
Now let's speak reality.
Yes.
The fact that it hasn't been implemented, and
Yes.
I like the fact that you're saying if, not
Yes.
when it is implemented. So if it is not, will this continue?
So I'm going to be a realist. I think maybe with the new commissioners coming in the next few months, there might be better political goodwill. So they might be successful to an extent on paper. There's a potential.
Yeah.
But the challenges will always remain. There are constants which are out there.
Okay.
Yeah, and you cannot act outside your law. You really can't. You're handicapped on that. So we will see that. And also it boils down to individual commissioners, their ability, their aptitude, the drive, the passion. Because you can be given something awesome, but leadership also is important. Somebody has to push, somebody has to fight, somebody has to be out there every single day and defining. That's what we've done. We've literally punched above our weight. If you are in a shoe, I can tell you for free, you realize, okay, I think you guys have done even way too much than we expected, because we've been punching, with the little that we've had, we've done extremely a lot.
So much is pegged on political goodwill at the end of the day.
It shouldn't be.
Yeah, but that's
it
the reality.
absolutely shouldn't be, because constitutional commissions and officers should be independent of political interference. That's why they're called independent officers. But we've seen, not just over the past, I think, 2 administrations, slow by slow, that independence, that firewall of independence is being eroded slowly by slowly. But the frame of constitution understood the importance of such institutions as checks and balances.
Okay.
They understood it. Yeah, because centralized power is dangerous. Yeah, but slowly by slowly we're seeing that it's not good for our democracy. It's not good for the future of our country. So institutions like ours should not depend on political goodwill. But unfortunately, the reality that we operate in a political space. So that's just reality that is there. Yeah.
Okay, let's speak about another reality. Not too long ago, NCIC mentioned they're investigating like 10 members of parliament on hate speech, 4 governors, and one of the party leaders in the country. Have the files been forwarded for prosecution? Is it still under investigation? What's the status?
I think only 2 files have been forwarded to the DPP. Waiting for feedback from them. The rest are still under investigation.
Okay.
What I talked about to you earlier about checks and balances, because when you take a file to the DPP, they'll tell you, this is not...
It doesn't hold water.
You go back. And that's why it really helps for Kenyans, because then we can run amok. Yeah, so it really helps when you have checks and balances within jurisprudence, within a legal framework. So I think only 2, the last time I checked, have been forwarded. We're still waiting. They're still going through. I mean, now upon them whether to arrest or not individuals, because now they will go arrest or come to court. The rest we're still investigating. It's a lengthy process. Let me give you an example just to understand what's happening. So today your team is covering a political rally, and a governor says things they're not supposed to. Maybe the political rally we were not there, but it's in public domain. So we all see what Governor X said. Now, unfortunately, I just can't run with that to court and say, see, this is what he said. I have to take that clip. We have to take that clip to be authenticated to CAK. CAK comes to you because they're the body that you work with and request for the video clip. The cameraman has to sign an affidavit to say that he was there, shooting the camera. This is his name. Then you submit the clip, then it's authenticated because it's AI and so on and so forth. That just back and forth takes 3 months. What I just described to you in 2 seconds. Just the back and forth. You understand? So that's 3 months investigation to authenticate exactly what he said, whether it's true or not. Because if you go to court, the court will say, okay, evidence, submit evidence. I just can't say, well, KTN, I can show you YouTube, your account in YouTube, and say that this is
enough
what
evidence.
That doesn't, threshold of evidence doesn't apply, yeah? So that's, I'm giving you just a small example of the child investigation. That's why sometimes they take lengthy. People want us to act fast. Yes, I agree, but there's due process. And then why do you want me to act fast, then go to court and the guy is dismissed again? So we are setting you up, then you say I'm useless again, or I'm toothless again. Yeah, so I think there has to be space and time for it, and then there have to be auto independency, so that even that, remember in our law, you're innocent till proven guilty.
Of course.
Yeah, so we have to give the benefit of the doubt, and we have to go through due process and afford them the rights, legal rights they have in the Constitution, whether we like them or not.
Okay, and we'll get to the obstacles, because long ago we thought the fact that you didn't have prosecutorial powers, that's the biggest obstacle as to why we're not seeing a lot of these hate speech cases being prosecuted. Let's just talk about this NCIC ethnic diversity report, because not too long ago you revealed that 8 tribes dominate parastatal workforce, nearly occupying 88%.
Yeah, 90%, yeah.
How did we get here? What's the solution? How do we break this cycle of ethnically aligned jobs?
I think that report is like a mirror. Why we do such reports, it's part of our mandate, is actually to hold the mirror to the soul of our nation and say, this is who we are as Kenyans. Are we truly Kenyans? And such reports remind us sometimes we're not truly Kenyans. We are a nation of ethnic tribes and ethnic groups. Little nations of ethnic tribes, and it is unfortunate. So how do we get there? I don't want to. I'm never quick to blame the colonial era, and I hate that. But the seeds were planted then, yeah. But the true problem began with the leadership after independence, and especially with something like called Session Paper Number 10. Yeah, we intentionally marginalized 2/3 of our country, because we believed, like our colonial predecessors, that certain parts of our country are more important than certain other parts of our country. It is actually written, I don't make this up. That actually we marginalized 2/3 of our landmass, and every ethnic group that lives there, from Turkana to Lamu, halfway north. Those guys said, you know what, as much as it used to be called Kenya B. In the 90s, you go there and they say, Mkienda Kenya, msalimia to Kenya, because they never felt part of our country. You understand?
I get
so
you.
now, quickly, if you look at power, especially, it used to be also why the presidency had to be demystified in the Constitution, because whoever becomes president those days and whoever becomes leaders those days, it wasn't just about political leadership, it was about development. Yeah? So to answer your question also, let me give you a true story to answer your question in a better way. The late Bonaya Godana took the then Deputy President, Mwai Kibaki, to Vice President, to North Hall, to a place called My Corner. I invited him to open a high school. This is not so long ago.
Yeah.
Mwai Kibaki, the president, to open a high school. It's not so long ago. So Mwai Kibaki, in his judicial self, asked the question, hata sahi, baada munafungua mambo ya shule, why would you invite a old person like me to go open a high school? The late Bonaya Godana, the then MP of North Hall, responded and said, Mr. President, this is the first high school in North Hall. The first high school. This is the first high school in North Hall. Now, I'm going to give you context of North Hall. North Hall is the largest constituency in our country. It is bigger than Western Province. Western Province. It is bigger than Nyanza Province. A whole province fits into North Hall. One constituency. It's that massive. It did not have a high school until recently. You understand? So if they don't go to school, are they going to get jobs? No, there's no institution. Have you been to Baringo, to Kapeto? I mean, Tiati is a constituency bigger than Nairobi. Nairobi fits into Tiati 3 times. Up to recently, they only had 3 schools. I mean, it is really sad. So we've marginalized in every way the infrastructure school. So when it comes to employment, today, you're asked for a certificate. You need to qualify. These guys never went to school. You understand?
I get you.
Because we dominated in power and development and infrastructure. So it's a history of marginalization of other communities and the dominance of other communities. And that is why we need to really address this issue if we're going to be one country and a cohesive, united country.
Okay. Well, the solution lies within, I guess. Independent institutions, as you mentioned earlier, are viewed vulnerable to influence and leading perhaps to selective enforcement against political opponents while sparing allies, you know, all that hullabaloo.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, during your 6-year tenure, were there overtures towards the independent institution to perhaps influence a certain position? How would you say your relationship as an independent institution was with other bodies, other arms of government, executive, legislature? Yeah.
So for the most part, with other arms of government, it was very cordial because there's something called one government approach, especially comes to our space, law enforcement.
Yeah.
You have many agencies within law enforcement space and justice and law sector, and we are, for the most part, cordial. Were there verbal overtures? You know, we always accuse of political interference. The other day, there's a headline in your paper that says we are what of the state, and it is actually the farthest. It is the opposite. If you realize, we're all be the best terms. So it was we were called stooges of this regime, and then these other people accuse. The regime accuses of being from the other side. You see, it's like a referee. I don't know what your favorite team is in the Premier League, but when the referee blows the whistle against your team, you're not very happy.
Of course.
You understand? That's our job. We didn't try to be popular here. I can say without fear here that as far as I am concerned, I have never experienced verbal overtures, one or another in the past. I've served 2 administrations to influence or direct in any way, so to speak. I can honestly, with a clear conscience, say that to you. Yeah, but it seems sometimes interference isn't, or engagement isn't directly. Sometimes it's indirect. And as I said earlier, one of the ways to handicap or restrict, minimize operational institution is through financing. Yeah, so that is what you do is more powerful than what you say. Yeah, so you're an influence. And this started way back. Remember KNHCR after 2013 election? Before that, KNHCR was very active. Yeah, before 2013, they were active. They were super active. They were in the vanguard of human rights and fighting for justice. What happened after 2013? The then administration that came to power started, they were under siege basically, and started an attrition war against KNHCR. And I can tell you for free, the KNHCR today is not the KNHCR that day. Yeah, they were severely handicapped. The finance. There's many ways to influence without saying do this. You understand? So I think we must all be honest with ourselves as a country, and remember, power is transient.
Okay.
Yeah. So one time, I won't reveal who
Briefly,
I say this to.
Yeah.
I told a then prominent cabinet secretary, who had a penchant for just being out there. I told him one day this institution that he was very critical of judiciary. And because the judiciary then were ruling many cases against government. And he was so angry one time, so we were in the VIP room and told him, let me tell you something, Ngozeri. One day, this very court that you're criticizing and ridiculing and upset with the cause that will defend you. And guess what? When you had power, he ran to court one day to get, what do you call these orders that you prevent from being arrested? Yeah, those orders.
Yeah.
And I said, you see, so we need institutions, whether it's judiciary or to protect everything, because one day it will be you who will need us to protect you. So when you erode our powers, when you were constricted, it is a disservice to not just the Constitution, but to the Kenyans, including you, who's doing it, because one day you actually need that institution.
Okay, as we finalize, and since your tenure is coming to an end, how do we ensure the next batch of commissioners are viewed not as toothless, viewed as proper enforcers fighting against hate speech? How do we make their job a little bit better from your prior experience, from benefit of hindsight?
Let them do their job. More importantly, empower them to do their job. They need to be empowered.
How do you empower? Policy-wise, financially?
Right now, the first empowerment is just financial-wise. Yeah, right now, we have all, listen, when they come, they literally have every tool to succeed. We've done we just released, that day we released a report, we released a report called Roadmap to Peaceful Election. All they have to do is implement it. For you to implement that report, we have prepared, we've done all the research, it's just, they need money. So you just started talking about 2027 in your opening statement. if we don't do something right now, we're going to have problems. We know that. So we want them to succeed. We've done everything. All they need is two things. Number one, resource to do it, and liberty, freedom to operate. Don't constrict them. They let them call you out if you're wrong, even if you're the one who appointed them.
Yeah.
Because that's their job, to save our country. Yes.
Okay, interesting. I think that's a proper way to end this particular conversation. Thank you so much for spending time with us on your final day as an NCIC commissioner. I'm pretty sure it's been a run. Would you, out of 10, how would you rate yourself? This is a trick question,
Myself
by the way.
or myself?
Oh,
okay, let me rate myself. I think for me, I punched above weight. Maybe I'll rate myself maybe 11 out of 10.
And the commission?
I think generally all of us, I would say 6, 7.
Okay, fair enough. Well, the jury is out there. I'm pretty sure Kenyans will have the final say. Asante sana, Dr. Danvas Makori, joining us in studio, giving us your time and conversing what exactly the NCIC has been doing in the last 6 years to ensure that the fight against hate speech is a success. Well, as I said, the jury is out there. Let's see what Kenyans will say. My name is Jesse Rogers. Thank you so much for watching KTN Prime. Enjoy the rest of your viewing. Good night.